All right, so what I decided to do, y'all, is record this Ed Pearson Part 4 on both StreamYard and the Roadcaster. I might have to holler at my homie Titan and ask, like, man, I could just Google it. You know, I could, but I was gonna say, like, how to really augment my sound. But see, I'm not playing with an even playing field because the laptop I got, I'm trying to do something that you don't typically do. But I heard that Surface Pro, I might be able to do something. I think I'm gonna try that too. Remember that Surface Pro that I was gonna use some pen testing stuff on there. I might even use my cell phone for that. So we'll see. I still I promise y'all that I will do the Team Viewer. I would do a Team Viewer early bird game, and then also there's a program, I think it's called Nessus. I use that because I took a Pen Plus class when I was working at a school as a data analyst. I took a Pen Plus class. Now this was paid time off. Like, this was time off where, you know, for a couple weeks the school ends. So I kind of like that. That was cool. The school ends, and I didn't go on vacation. I didn't just kind of sit back. I went and took a certification class, and I took the test. Didn't study at all, and almost passed it. Man, I did pretty damn good. You know, and they say you needed to have your security plus, your CompTIA plus. But they had this one lady that was teaching it over at Metro State University, whereas I taught there. You know what I'm saying? That's where I kind of got my technical training chops up. And I went over there and I took the Pen Plus certification test. It was something they were offering, and it was cool. It was cool, man. It was cool. It was a long class, but it was cool. I think I took that. Was it 2019 or was it 2018 or I don't know when it was, but I went ahead and did that. I wrote down some notes because I wanted to do this here. I call it Down in the Dungeon. I wanted to do it down in the dungeon because I could show y'all different pictures, and there was a lot of different things that y'all seen in my story times where you would be able to reference some of the adventures of DP Storytime on, you know, how I kind of got into IT and something more so my background. There were some things that I didn't discuss in the last couple story times. There was a couple different things that I didn't discuss. So some of the notes that I got talking about, you know, my pops and kind of growing up and kind of just getting a lot of game. Like I say, it was very tacit learning. You had to kind of watch him. He might say certain stuff, but it wasn't. As I got a little older, beyond tying my shoes and stuff like that, you pretty much just had to just watch what he did. So it wasn't like well, I'm going to take you and sit you down and I'm telling you this is what you do, A, B, C. It wasn't like an A, B, C kind of thing. It's like you had to kind of just pick up as you go. And that actually kind of worked out for me, I guess, to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I was never, I just didn't really need a lot. I didn't seek out a lot of support and help. I don't recall doing that. I was kind of self-sufficient when it came to, like, you know, anything I did. I really didn't have, I didn't really have nobody walk me through a bunch of stuff. Everything was kind of just fly by the moment or whatever the case may be. And there was this place that I wanted to talk about that was on my mind. There's a gas station that's by my house that I go to. A Hy-Vee gas station, to be exact. And the manager there, he knows me. You know, I always get my coffee. I like that stock brew. It tastes different in that machine than in the bottle. Super good. That's what I have when I'm drinking, talking to y'all. So we were having a discussion about, just I guess he must have left. He left because, a couple months ago I didn't see him, and I said, "Damn, what happened to the manager?" He's like, "Man, he quit." Well, eventually he came back. So I said, "I ain't seen you in a minute," so he came back. And that's another thing. If you're a good worker, man, somebody will have you back. You know what I'm saying? People will they'll definitely have you back. Like Diddy fired people all the time. And then they brought them right back. You know what I'm saying? Good workers, I suppose. Whether they gonna use you, exploit you, whatever. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying. So, they brought him back, and we were talking about. He said, "Oh, I live in Taylor Falls." That's the point of this story. Let's move on. Taylor Falls was a place that my dad used to bring me, my mom, and my brother. It's 40 miles out, kind of towards, I think, a little bit of Wisconsin or whatever. And they had this, to walk in like the diners, like the old 50 diners, where they have the shakes and all that kind of stuff. So we were talking about that, and I was telling them about my pops used to bring me up there. And I started talking about, I said, "Man, I'm thinking about, checking out a rural place or whatnot." And he was like, "Check out Pine City." I said, So it's like maybe close to about an hour drive. And then he showed me this. Let me give y'all a little bit of game, because y'all see where things is headed. Let me give y'all a little bit of game before we go on. This is something y'all don't know about. This is the single family housing guaranteed loan program. If your credit is decent, you make under 100 grand, and as long as it's not Hennepin County or Ramsey County or Anoka County, and it's one more large county, I think, you could live in a rural place. Now, if you're looking at a family of four, it's under 115 grand for a family of four. There might not be no down payment. You can buy some land, buy a house, drop it on it, up to 400 racks with 1 to 4%. You see what I'm saying? You could do that. They might have something for you. So I was just sitting here thinking about it, and I said, "Man, I might have to consider that. So yeah, I just thought about, and I said, "Man, is it black folks out there in Pine City?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, it's progressive. They got the first LGBT mayor and all that." I'm like, okay, but he said it's black folks out there. So I went and looked it up on Wikipedia, and it's like 95% white and like 2% black, which that ain't a lot of black folks, but ain't a lot of black folks in Minnesota anyway. I mean, it's a lot of black folks, but when you go outside the counties, Ramsey County and stuff like that, it's not as much. But black folks live everywhere. So that's just something I thought about. And remember, I was talking about land. Gotta have some land, bro. I'm going to have that, man, in the next year or so. I'm going to have it. Y'all see where everything's going. So anyway, the ideas is going to be just coming left and right. So I was going to do this tomorrow and upload this for y'all, but I think I'm going to go ahead and work on it tonight. That way I can try to bond the audio from the podcast, so it's going to sound real good. It's going to sound real crispy, and I'm going to get some dope music. I'm going to get some real dope music. So I'll be bouncing around with different ideas, and I wrote all this stuff down. So some of the things that I learned coming up as a young man, remember I said that they used to make us watch them Oprahs talking about how like they was abducting kids and stuff like that. And so my dad taught me at a young age several different things. Always keep an ID. And he told me, like, well, it's illegal if you ain't got no ID. And I was kind of thinking, like, it's illegal. Like, that don't really make sense. It shouldn't be illegal if you ain't got no ID. He said, you supposed to be identified. He said, you ain't supposed to be out here where don't nobody know where you at. Something happened to you, don't nobody know nothing. I was like, You could be unconscious. Somebody don't know anything. This has happened to people. And then I kind of think about it. At first, I was just thinking, oh, well, you just being overly or whatever, when I was a kid. And now I think about that as a grown man. You ain't supposed to be no grown adult and not have no identification. Children, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they typically don't have IDs. He took me to get my ID at like 11, 12 or something like that. It was like 12. It was like, okay, you need to have an ID. So he took me to get an ID. He was adamant about getting an ID. And he said, man, it's illegal not to have an ID. And I didn't think it was illegal or whatever the case may be. But, he said, you need to be identified. What are you up to where you don't want to be identified? That's another point. So as I got older, and I was like 16, 17, 18, 19, and when I used to hear niggas just say, man, I ain't got no ID, I didn't trust them. Because what you trying to hide? You should, especially being that age, you supposed to have an ID, bro. Something can happen to you, and you need to be identified. Somebody might kidnap your ass. Anything. You have nobody knows who you are. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on the bus. Let me tell you what something happened. I was on the bus on the 5, right where where Schindler's was. For folks that don't know where Schindler's used to be a very popular magazine store. They had a Schindler's in downtown Minneapolis. This is probably like 99, 98, 2000. I think they got rid of it in 04, 05 or something. I don't know. Then they had a Schindler's in Roseville. Now the Xfinity, if anybody knows, if you from the city, you know what I'm talking about. Off 36, right where the Xfinity is, across the street from the Roseville Mall, they had a Schindler's right there. And they used to have an Old Country Buffet. Now they call it Golden Corral. So, I'm on the 5 headed towards Minneapolis, not towards the north side. So it's right on that block, like kitty corner to Schindler's or whatever it is. The 5 just stops there. I'm on the bus. I don't remember where I was coming from. I don't remember. I just remember, I don't even know if I had a backpack with me. But I was coming from the north side. I don't think I was coming from my homie Titan's house. I was coming from somewhere. I went to probably go see abroad or whatever. I don't know. Actually, that's probably where I was going. I probably was going to see some chick over north or something like that. I didn't really like messing with the north side like that. I really didn't. I swear I didn't. But, they be having some chocolates over there. So, I might have been over there. So, I got my headphones on. Somebody said something to somebody, and that's when I started learning to turn my volume down so I could hear everything that's going on, especially on the 5. But I was listening to my music. I didn't hear anything of what happened. Something happened where somebody said something to somebody, and somebody said something to the bus driver. It was some dudes that got into, I don't know what it was, but I'm on the back, or like not right at the back, but a couple seats up by the back. And it was two dudes that was on the other side of me, but they were kind of up front, a little bit more up front. And then there was an older guy that had the problem with the younger dudes. I don't know what it was. So the bus wouldn't move for a while. So after a while, I put my headphones down like this. That's how I put my headphones down. I was kind of just looking. So now I'm hearing a little bit of argument. The bus driver's saying some stuff, and the dudes are saying stuff to the bus driver. About 5 minutes later, Transit PD get on. Transit PD get on. They get on the bus. And they get to asking folks questions about what happened. I don't know what happened. And I don't really like talking to the law anyway. So they come to me asking for me to make like, statements or whatever, trying to find out. And I really didn't know what was going on. You know what I'm saying? So they get to asking me about this, that, and the third. And I said, well, I was listening to my music, officer, so I don't really know what's going on. And he kind of looked at me, and he could kind of tell that I don't know what's going on. So he said, you got an ID? And I said, yeah, I got an ID. I said, what do I need an ID for? Like, trying to find out, like, what do I have to do with this investigation? He said, well, I need to see it. I said, all right. I said, well, I'm going to reach for it. So I take my ID out. I give it to him. He takes a look. He hands it back. And I asked him, I said, what's going on? He says, you didn't hear what was the disturbance? I said, no, I had my headphones on. I didn't really, I said, I said, I get on this number 5, man. I try to just blank out, man. I don't really want to hear what's going on or whatever. He said, yeah, I understand. And I really should have had him off or had the volume down to where, and see, sometimes it's good to where, like, even if you do have your headphones on, if you on a 5 or you just moving around the city and you really don't even want to be having no music on where you can't hear nothing else. That's what I learned. They go over to the dudes that had the issue. Let me see your ID. Oh man, Joe, we ain't got no ID and all this kind of stuff and all this old flim flam. And I'm like, man, these niggas ain't got both of them. Both dudes did not have no ID. And we weren't little kids. We was of age where that's something you gonna have. Like, I don't know if I don't think I was old enough to drink. I was probably close, but I was too old not to have a driver's a license or a permit or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I was way too old for that. Now one of these dudes had an ID. You know what they did? Put your hands behind your back. They arrested him. Because this is how the police look at it. And let's take an objective standpoint. And this is what my dad was trying to tell me. You out here willy-nilly. Somebody say you did something. You can't prove that you didn't because you a ghost. Don't nobody know who you is. Nobody knows who you are. And you with the flim flam because you don't want people to know who you is. Now, why is that? That's kind of dangerous when you really think about it. Let's say you a dude and you meet some chick and let's say she's like, man, I just want to see your ID. You know what I'm saying? She ain't on no, she just want to know who she's dealing with. Because folks be lying, man. Sometimes folks be lying. They be criminals. They be predators, whatever. Man, I ain't got no ID. What? Oh, you own something. You absolutely up to something. Don't nobody, and some people may say, well, I left the ID at home. Man, I never leave my ID at home. I won't leave the house without it. Because I need to be identified. I think I got something on my ID that says something about I got diabetes or something like that. I mean, there's, that I think there's like, I forgot what they call them, like a signifier or something like that. I've always looked at that like you should be identified. And now it's not just my dad taught me that, he had it burned in my brain, but that's something you should have. You shouldn't be no grown ass man or no grown ass woman and you ain't got no identification. You see what I'm saying? You need to be identified unless you up to no good. There's no reason why you shouldn't be. You might really need to be out there. And then here's the thing. Here's what saved me. If I didn't, they would have took me to Hennepin County too. Because see, in their minds, they're like, okay, something happened on this bus. They threatened somebody or something. They did something. They said something to somebody on the bus and they called the police. And with me, I got my ID. So if I didn't have no ID, they could have took me in because we don't, you running around our city and you ain't identifying yourself. We don't know who you are. We think you're up to something. That's what they were thinking. So I was glad I had my ID. I was real glad I had my ID. You see what I'm saying? So, I had a wallet. I always kept a wallet. That was another thing. He said a man needs to have a wallet. Another thing, a man should have an occupation. A man shouldn't have a bunch of damn idle time where he's sitting around not doing shit. That's what he told me when I was a kid. A man should have an occupation. He says, if you ain't got no occupation, or if you ain't got something you doing, he said, you're worthless. He said, why are you even here? I kind of thought about that. I said, what value do you bring to other people? He said, a man should bring value. You shouldn't just here. What we call it? Used to call it. I don't remember who it was. There's some dude. They call them empty cup Negroes. They don't bring nothing to the table. They might have a few ideologies, but they don't physically do anything. They don't bring anything to anybody around them. You, he said, you as a man, he said, you should be able to modify and change the world around you with the people that you love. You should be able to modify it. If you can't, what good are you? I learned something. He said, ants got a job. They're small, but they get jobs done. They have a very important job. Why shouldn't you have one? So that's another thing I learned. You should have a purpose. You should have something that you do, that you add and you bring to the table. You shouldn't walk in a room and people be like, okay, what does he do? Oh, he don't do nothing. So that was some good advice. He said, always keep a pen and paper when you're on the phone. I still do that. Well, now I have the phones and stuff now, but now, I mean, a lot of times I still have paper. He said, always, you might have to write down a number. Man, there's been times, and that's another thing that I used to try to like to do. I used to like to keep a pen and pad or something like that, because sometimes when I used to be out and about, at one point, I used to, even if I didn't really have anything specific, sometimes I would get a business card. People take you serious. When I used to be in my early 20s, sometimes I'd keep paper and pen and pad with me, because if I'm trying to holler at a chick or whatever like that, sometimes I write the number down on pen and paper. Somebody always said, man, you got a pen, man, you got a pen. Don't nobody got no damn pen. I'm always the nigga on the bus with a pen. Don't nobody got no pen? I always have a pen. You know what I'm saying? So those were like things that I kind of learned and stuff like that. And, kind of seeing him when he was grabbing, those products, and when him and his friends was doing like the flim flam with getting like, going to the flea markets and stuff like that. I remember seeing that. So there was some kind of salesmanship. That drive and that ambition was there, but like I say, it didn't materialize, because he wouldn't go and get like an LLC. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be nothing. It wouldn't be a follow up. It'd be like, he kind of lived his life in phases. He'll try this, he'll try that. That didn't work out. And see, the thing is what I was gonna say is, a lot of times I think what happened with my parents when they got into it was that my dad used to owe people money, and like sometimes people would come by the house while he wasn't there, and my mom would be there, and she didn't like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't bring, because your job ain't gonna do that. But you got people that you owe money. And one dude, I remember there was a guy, he came by the house. I think he came by a few times kind of looking for him, and couldn't find him because he wasn't there. I don't know what he was doing or whatever. I remember at one point I seen my dad with a pager and stuff like that. And so, he didn't sell no drugs or whatever, but some of the characters, they be like she was really uncomfortable with that. And he didn't threaten her. But I remember the dude came by the house. I don't think she let him in. But just the fact you got dudes coming to the house, it's going to make your wife uncomfortable. Like, hey, you got folks coming by the house asking for some money you owe them, and you ain't paid them. You see what I'm saying? So now they come into your house because they knew where he lived. You see what I'm saying? I don't remember people coming by the house a lot, but I think that's something that kind of rubbed my mother the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? I do. I remember when my pops used to work at Domino's. I don't know how long it was, but I mean, I know the pizza was really good because, everything tasted good in the 80s and the early 90s. It just tasted good. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a picture of that I got. somewhere. Um, I will now. I talk about like how I kind of wanted to be an entomologist. I was a kid in the neighborhood where I'd be able to talk to technology and different things like animals, and like I knew that stuff, the periodic table elements. I kind of knew a lot of them different things. And at one point, I was studying praying mantises. Now, as I got older in my late 20s, late 30s, I was getting them off of eBay. My homie Stack Doe. Shout out to Stack Doe. Stack Doe had ordered me some right after my mom passed. Something happened with my eBay account. I don't know what happened with it, but it wasn't working right or whatever. So I don't know. I asked bro, I said, man, let me just give you the money. And he ordered me a praying mantis nymph, what they call it. Let me see if I can find. No, that ain't it. Let me see. Hold on, y'all. Let me see. Just bear with me. I want to see if I could find is this it? This is what I ordered at one point. So basically it was small. You know, it was a real small mantis. And I ordered something where, when was this? 2016. Yep. September 12, 2016. So I was starting to order several of them. But the first one that I ordered, and I'll never forget this because, and Stack Door probably remember this, but I'll never forget this because I had him order. Damn, where was I working around that time, man, when I first had him order? It was around, I know it was definitely 2015, 2016. And I had him order it, and I came by his house because he lived like off of River Road somewhere like in Fridley or whatever like that. He was in Brooklyn Park at that time. And so I was going to his garage. Matter of fact, I think that, yeah, you know what, it was West River Road. It was in the cut. Bro always stayed in the cut. Like he would stay in these conspicuous spots. My homie used to stay in these conspicuous spots. You ain't gonna catch him. You ain't gonna catch Stack Doe doing nothing. You ain't gonna catch him slipping doing nothing at all. You just ain't gonna catch him. You know, not that he was up to no good, but you just ain't gonna catch bro. Cause he'd stay in these spots. He'd have, and so I went to go pick it up, and he stayed. You know, I went to go pick it up, and I think he was working on his old school or he was doing something, and we was just sitting out there talking. He's like, "Bro, I ain't seen you happy in years," because he knew I just lost mom. He knew that was just recent, so I was just trying to. You know what I'm saying? Just basically just kind of just weave through life and just keep it pushing. That's all I really did. Is I mean I might sit and sulk a little bit, but I would just kind of keep it pushing. But I just wasn't the same. My mindset was a little different. But I knew I had to kind of keep going. You know what I'm saying? But that was kind of something that kind of kept because my mind was still kind of. So that's one of the things I got. I think. Where was I? Was I still living? I think I was living in Oakdale around that time. Yep, I was. I was living in Oakdale because it was around 2015, 2016. Yeah, I was staying in Oakdale. I was staying in Washington County. Oakdale was cool. I would have bought a house out there. I should have bought one around that same time. I was making a lot of money. I should have did it. You know what I'm saying? Things was different back then. But so anyway, he brought me way out somewhere to some place. I must have learned they call it Othekas or something. It's basically a hard case. And they're baby praying mantises. And I always, as a kid, I always wanted one. But when you go to the pet shop, especially like the Harmar Mall in Roseville, where I used to always go to that Wingstop, the Harmar Mall used to have a pet store, and they have all these different crazy looking tarantulas and stuff. Like they had a blue one and stuff like that. Eventually I got a tarantula. That must have been around maybe 8th or 9th grade. because I brought the tarantula to South High School. They had like some kind of project or whatever. I had a rose hair tarantula. This was towards the end of the year, ninth grade teen. I brought the tarantula to school. And somebody on ninth grade team said that they was gonna do something to my spider or whatever like that. Oh, I would have snapped. But I brought it to school as, and nobody really looked at it or whatever like that. But I remember I brought it to school. It had a case. It lasted for maybe about 2 years or something like that. But I think it was 8th grade I bought it. It might have been my 8th grade year in my birthday. So I remember I told my mom I want to get this tarantula. She didn't know how big it was or whatever. So my grandma had brought us, and it was cold outside. So we went to go get it, and I had like a little case. Eventually I went and bought a bigger case. You see what I'm saying? So I think around that time, and this is another story with my pops. This is around the time where I had my own room. Me and my younger brother at one point, we used to share a room. But my older brother had a room, and I think something happened as he was getting older. He didn't want to go to work. He was working somewhere and he quit or something, and I think my mom kind of had it and basically told him, well, man, you got to get that room up. And my dad was kind of agreeing. Like he didn't feel like my brother was he felt like he was kind of BSing around and not, being responsible. So, my mom basically told my older brother, you got to get that room up. So eventually I got the room, and my younger brother, he got his room. Because remember, we had a bunk bed. And so my younger brother, he stayed in one room, and then I got the room. They made it uncomfortable for my older brother, like, oh, you can stay on the couch or whatever. He eventually went over to my grandma's house and stuff like that. But yeah, they wasn't having it. They were like, no, you give up that room. I guess one day he didn't want to go to work, or he just kept missing work. She said, okay, no, you either gonna work, you're gonna go to college, or you're gonna go to service. Those were your options. That was your options coming up in the 90s. The late 90s, or you know what I'm saying? You gonna go to college, you gonna go to work, you gonna go to the service. That goes back to the purpose talk. You ain't just gonna be laying around doing nothing. They ain't happening. And to be quite honest, as negative as my dad was at times, he had a point. You see what I'm saying? No grown man is gonna let another grown man stay in his residence if he ain't putting on, and he's gonna get to fixing to ask him, okay, what's your plans, Negro? Because you can't just stay here forever. You got to go out on your own. What is your plans? You know what I'm saying? Grown men don't tolerate other grown men just sitting around them. It ain't happening. Especially if you got a wife and kids and stuff. You just done, at some point you're gonna have to figure out, like, okay, but what you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? You can't just stay up in here just willy nilly. No, ain't nobody going for that. 98% of grown men ain't going for that. They just not. They got to see. They might look out for you and stuff like that. But after a while, it's like, okay, son, you going to get it together. You can't just not do nothing. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You're not a child. You grown. And the thing is, when you grown, you got to pay for some things. So when we were like, I talked about how, like, I was going to church. You know what I'm saying? We would go and observe the Sabbath day, right? So now, we never messed around with it, but like our parents used to tell us, don't be messing with them Ouija boards and stuff like that. Like, I remember there was a story we had where somebody had got one. I don't know if it was somebody we knew or somebody that was in the church or whatever, but somebody got one. And every time they try to get rid of it, it come back. That's what they say. They say it just they throw it away and the shit will just come back. They couldn't get rid of it. Eventually they got rid of it, but that was the story. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was true. We never really messed around with it. I didn't have. And see, here's the thing y'all gotta understand as kids. As children, you're soaking up whatever someone tells you until you prove it otherwise, and you get older or whatever. You be like, oh, that's just a bunch of bumbo jumbo, whatever, right? That's how the mind works. When you're a child, you think as of one. Now, when so we just kind of took it, so you're naturally curious. So you got to think, we watching Child's Play and all kind of stuff and The Exorcist, and you're thinking about all these different things. And what is that noise? I don't know. I think they're probably working on something upstairs. Let me see how this sounds. Hold on. Let's see. It must be something to tell you. Okay. So you're thinking about these things, right? And as a kid, you're sitting back like you're kind of curious, but then you're kind of thinking like some of this stuff might be evil. So we didn't have the desire as kids to buy or play a Ouija board. We thought it was kind of interesting, like the idea, but we were kind of like, okay, we don't really want to mess with that or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, but I remember like I was talking about before, where he was talking about a lot of them roots and how he knew how to do some of these things, but he was telling us that, you shouldn't mess with it. And at one point, I thought that it was just something that he get some old Mississippi folklore, some superstition or whatever like that. But it was something that he was serious about. Like, it, to me, I thought it was just like a folklore thing. But, the way he explained it, it wasn't no joke. It wasn't something like where he was just saying, hey, this is just some old mumbo jumbo. He was telling us like, man, don't bother it. I don't want you messing with it. I don't even want you researching it so beyond my word. This ain't something that you just play with. And I don't know if he might have experienced something or something happened, or I don't know what it was. I don't think my dad dealt with the occult world. I don't think it was something that where he was sitting around and doing all kind of stuff or whatever like that. I mean, I don't think it was something that he was interested in doing. So, but let me see. I got another. Yeah, so there's some other little paperwork stories or some notes that I wrote down. When I talked about the food stamps song, I talked about how, like, I'm wondering if I could. Hold on, let me see. It's in Rollcaster. Because I think I could kind of tie this in. Open path. Okay. Let me put that in there. So this is a conversation. I'm gonna upload this real quick, and then I'll play it. I'm gonna upload it. Let me go over here. Hold on. You can't hardly hear it. Let me see.
Millions of people putting him out.
All right, let me make it even.
You kind of lose because no wonder you count on. But he was also.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to make it louder. There was a conversation that I recorded with my pops. I didn't know how long I was gonna be able to talk to him. If I had to, because I talked to him, and there's more of this conversation. Let me give y'all a little backstory, and then we'll get back to the food stamps, because that's kind of the food stamp song. Real quick, that was recorded beyond 2015. My dad died in 09. He died in, like, was it April 09 or May 09 or something like that? You know what I'm saying? Right around the time, a couple months after I opened up my mini high one-stop shop. So he didn't really get to see the change or the fruition. He left the state of Minnesota probably when I was in 9th grade, maybe 10th grade. When I went to Iowa and got suspended in 10th grade? Yeah, I got suspended in 10th grade. When he left and went to Colorado, I was already maybe 15, maybe 15, 16, maybe 15, 16 or so. You see what I'm saying? So, the conversation that I recorded, that was well after high school. At that point, I was grown. Matter of fact, when we had this conversation, when I recorded it, it was on a cell phone that I had. It probably was around 07, anywhere between I know I had my own place. So I don't think it was 08. It was like 05, 06, 07. I was staying in Cedar Riverside, to my knowledge, because I had I don't know how I recorded the conversation. I might have had like another phone, but I was on the phone with him and he was on speaker. And but I think it was an option that you could record the conversation locally on that phone. And I had that. It was a flip phone. And I took the phone and I started going to the studio. So that had to been around 05, 06 maybe, because I wasn't driving. I started driving in 2000. Well, hold on. Was it late 2000? Because I got the car. Let's go back when I was working at the nonprofit. Remember, I worked at the nonprofit from about June 2007 to July 2008. So this had to have been early 2008 or late 2007 when I was driving. So this was before I was driving. Because I used to go to the studio with my homies over north. I wasn't driving then. We used to like get rides from people and stuff like that to get to the studio. Sometimes I would and that was actually in around IPR days. After IPR days, we would go to the studio over north, and because we knew Pro Tools and stuff at that time. But we really didn't have I didn't really have no real plan of what I was going to do. We never really materialized anything. So that was after 2003. So that was 2000. That had to have been 2004 when I was going to the studio. So around that time going to the studio, I believe that might have been 05. Kind of around that time. Could have been 04. But it probably was, yeah, it was between 05 and 04. It was around by 05 or whatever the case may be, because I had my own place in Cedar Riverside. So how old was I around that time? 04 minus 1982. I'm just trying to just get the timelines together, y'all. I was about 22. Well, I was a baby. I was about 22. My brain had probably just finally developed. You know what I'm saying? I was a baby. Yeah, so Yeah, 20. So yeah, I was probably about 22, 23 years old. Cause Ray came out in 2004. I didn't have no car then, and I was dealing with this older chick. So I was living at home, and I think maybe around '05 is when I got my. I'm gonna get some paperwork for y'all so I can know exactly where I was staying. But I know I was staying in D building probably around '05, '06 or whatever. So I recorded the conversation in my living room. Then when I went to the studio, I played the audio from the cell phone and recorded it. You know what I'm saying? And we just listened to the whole thing. So back to the food stamps, where I was talking about the VCR combo. I think I'm gonna play that too, because I might as well make it a long story time. I was talking about the VCR combo. My dad had came home with a VCR combo. I don't know where he got it. Those things were expensive around that time. But he came, and it was a small VCR. It was only like 13 inches. But it meant the world to us, because it was the VCR and the TV all in one. And he had set it in our room. And Jurassic, let's see, when did Jurassic Park come out, y'all? Let me see, that was 93. Jurassic Park, October 1994 is when Jurassic Park came out. Cause see, we wanted to see Jurassic Park in the theaters, but we never went to the theaters. They'd go to Blockbuster, or they'd buy the VHS. The VHS was like $15 back then, so it wasn't cheap either. But we wanted to go see it because we used to hear about it, and I used to want the Velociraptor toy, and I used to get that sometimes and stuff like that. But Jurassic Park came out on tape in October 1994, and I couldn't wait to see it. So we watched, to my knowledge, we watched it on the VHS, VCR. My eyes were glued. I don't even think I got up to piss. I had to piss bad as hell. That whole time, I did not leave that seat. I just sat there on the carpet, just watching. And I'll tell you what the biggest part of the movie was for me. My heart was beating the whole time watching that movie, especially the part where the T-Rex, they didn't know where the goat went, and the Tyrannosaurus. Man, please. When that Tyrannosaurus swallowed that goat, cause see, first you start hearing that foot beat. And I remember seeing some behind the scenes eventually where they talked about how they made that footprint, or how they made the water shake. Man, the special effects in Jurassic Park, you can't be a kid that came up under 1994. Now what's crazy is October 94. Old Jim Crow Joe passed the 94 crime bill in that same year. Yeah. That's very interesting that I say that. But I'm telling you, man, in 94, how old was I in 94? Let me just check, man. I'm just curious. I'm going down memory lane. How old was I in 94? I'm just real curious. I probably was like 10 or something like that. 11. I was 12. Damn. So I was older than I thought. So yeah, I was 12. I was about 12 years old, 11, 12 years old probably, man, when that came out, cuz I remember they bought the actual VHS. So I lost my train of thought. That recording. So we had this recording. The VHS tape. So the VHS tape of Jurassic Park, we watched it on that VCR combo. Now the VCR combo, I talked about how my dad just left town, just out of the blue. He just went town, left us. We ain't had no money, no money in the fridge. My mind to pawn the VHS VCR combo. That was another strike. Cause he had did stuff like similar to that where it rubbed her the wrong way. And that was probably another issue with the marriage too. Is, you know, I think, women, when they see stuff like that, and it wasn't a situation where he was trying to. I don't think he was seeing, another woman. It was just, his kids. He had two sisters. He had two daughters before us. So he had four daughters before us. But I think he went out to go look out for my sister Val. Val had always been one of the, she's always been like the mess up. She's always, so I think he went to Colorado, or he went to go look out for her. And so, my mom was kind of like, you left us here and didn't leave no money or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It was just, I don't know. It was crazy. So I remember taking like a cart and putting the VHS VCR combo, and we sold it. We didn't come get it back or whatever like that. Eventually, I think I was working a part-time job at some point, and I bought like the VCR, a VHS. At one point, there was a place like on, that's why I always like East Lake Street going towards St. Paul, not going towards Uptown, the other way. There was a shop that was kitty corner that was across the street from where the White Castle used to be on like 36th and Lake or something like that, and they sold tapes. Or they sold TVs. They refurbished TVs, like mainly tube TVs. And I think I bought a TV. But I know for a fact I went and I bought a VHS. Now the one, it was heavy. I don't even remember how I got it home. I think I took it on the bus. But it was the one where the VHS tape pops up. And I got tired of, I'll go to Blockbuster. Right over there by the Blockbuster. Man, let me tell y'all a story. I'll tell you a little mini story. I'm human. I ain't blind. I'm just gonna keep it real. There was this chick that used to work up there, and eventually, like when I started driving and stuff. Now it's crazy because I remember when I wasn't driving, I used to walk over to that Blockbuster. I don't remember when that Blockbuster closed, but it was right on East Lake, right by Denny's. And it was this one chick. I can't remember her name. It was a dark skinned chick. She used to work up there. And she was tall, but I didn't know how thick she was. And she had a man. So now, she used to work up there. And eventually, I started kind of driving. Eventually, and somehow I must have got her phone number. And I picked her up. And she spent the night at the crib. Now this was like around 2009. This was kind of around the time when, now I don't think she was working a Blockbuster then no more, because we were doing DVDs. Folks wasn't getting no VHSs. But I remember when she used to work there, and I don't know if there was VHS, it probably been DVDs or whatever, but at that time I didn't have no car. But I believe that around the time when she was working there, I think when she was working there, I used to come by Blockbuster and use the internet. They had like a little laptop or something you could use, so I just be on there cruising the net. But eventually when I started driving or whatever, one time I picked her up, and I'm telling you, I had no idea she was that damn thick. But we ain't end up doing nothing. She came by the crib or something like that, and she spent the night, had her little bag or whatever, and I think she kind of got into some, I don't know, but I think eventually I kind of found out she was kind of for the streets a little bit or something like that. So, but I don't know. It was kind of weird, but she was bad. She's super bad. I just had no idea, because sometimes you don't, the way certain women dress or whatever like that. But anyway, I used to always go to that Blockbuster all the time. I would take the number 7. And I would just go to that Blockbuster, rent movies. They had this thing where I think you paid for a membership and you could rent. That's how I found out about Rosewood. You could rent 2 or 3 movies. Or you rent 2. And they used to always say stuff's new release. Y'all know how that used to get down. They'd always say it's new release, but half that shit was a new release. So that was a big part of my childhood too. Because another thing I used to do, I'm trying to remember. There might have been a point, I can't remember when that Blockbuster closed. But when that Blockbuster closed, man, I would rent, I'm reminiscing, y'all. So I think I would rent I think I would rent DVDs and then I would dupe them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not exactly sure, but I think I would. What's this? Hold on. All right, hold on. It's always something, man. Hold on, y'all. Rock with me. It's always something, man. All right. Okay. I might do a live tonight. Y'all want a live? I don't think nobody up at no 1 in the morning. I was thinking about doing a live with y'all. So anyway, so I would rent. Man, I kind of need to know around that time because see, I'm talking about that VHS combo, and it's bringing back so many memories, and some of it's a little emotional. So I'm trying to channel myself. Blockbuster was such an intricate part of my life, and eventually I started going to Hollywood Video in Dinkytown because they had better deals. They wouldn't do you dirty, and that's how I found out about The Wire. That's what it was. The Wire, I think, was on DVD. I don't remember when I first got my DVD player, but I'm trying to think. Did I have a DVD player when I was at my mom's? Well, I bought a DVD burner. The DVD burning, when I started burning DVDs, that was when I left the house. Yeah, nobody had a DVD burner. But I remember what I used to do. This was my whole thing. This how I know. Let me show y'all something. This was my thing right here. I ain't ashamed to tell you. Negro, please. This right here. Man, let me tell you something. Let me tell you why this is important in my life. This came out January 24. It's called Darkness Falls. It's called Darkness Falls. Do y'all know? And a lot of brothers and sisters just around the nation, especially Minneapolis, you could attest. Do y'all know this was Netflix and chill before Netflix and chill? The tapes. Because I don't think I had the DVDs. The first person that had a DVD in the neighborhood was Josh G. That was the first person that I seen with a DVD player, and I thought it was just like, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? I was still listening to tapes. You know what I'm saying? But he had a DVD. He had a DVD player. Because at one point, my homie, he used to stay. He had his child around 2000 something, whatever like that, and then he stayed on Portland. But then he moved down to River Bluff. He must have heard about an opening and moved down to River Bluff, and he had a DVD player. And I just thought it was just the world. I said, damn, bro. I mean, I knew what it was, but I still was kind of like, man, I don't listen to tapes. But at one point, I got tired of rewinding the tapes, and I bought a DVD, like the tape rewinder, because they used to do that thing, a Blockbuster, be kind, please rewind. They would charge you $1 if you didn't rewind the tape, because the tape takes a long time to rewind a lot of times. So I bought a tape rewinder. It was like $10 or $15, $20 or whatever. I bought one. But, you know, at one point, like I said, when I got that VCR and brought it home, that's what we would watch. I would go to Blockbuster, and I'd have the VCR in my room. That was a thing. That was a thing, man. Like, I'm telling you, back to Darkness Falls, man. Darkness Falls 03. This was 03. This was 2 years after high school. Man, let me tell you something. Man, I used to have females come to the crib a lot. You know what I'm saying? And we'd watch that Darkness Falls. That's what I do. I go rent Darkness Falls. And they ain't never seen nothing like that. And it would crack. It would crack. I remember when I used to like, until like I left it, and that's another reason I moved out of my mom's house, because, you know, I used to want to do what I do. And I don't know, I guess I don't think she really knew her, you know what I'm saying? Like, we was incognito about stuff. But let me tell you something, man. I played a movie and turned the movie up a little bit or whatever like that, and there's times where I'm trying to not be explicit, but man, look. There was times where women blow my mind. Like, it's like, what I'm saying is like, I wasn't that advanced. We adults probably watching this. I for real. At that time, I wasn't advanced. I ain't really know much. They like, don't move your hands. Just sit back and relax. Don't even touch your hands. I'm like, whoa. Off of Darkness Falls. While now you gotta have a Rolls Royce and all this kind of stuff here, and he gotta have a this, that, and the third, and the Cheesecake Factory, man, please. And I ain't talking about no slouchers. I ain't talking about nothing that look crazy. We ain't talking about no 500-600 pounders. We ain't talking about no wildebeest. We talking about something decent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm telling you, the 2000s was beautiful. It was just a beautiful place in Minneapolis, man. It was a beautiful place. It was wonderful. Completely wonderful. I mean, there were some things that, like, okay, check this out, man. My first Windows 7 deployment. I wasn't gonna get into this, but right here.
Big project right here, you guys. I think this was at the Department of Urban Development. I think this was right around here, and it's real close.
So I went into this building. It was like the Oracle building. I don't remember what it was, but it was around this one. I don't know. I met something that looked crazy. I'd never forget, because she was short chocolate. Man, listen. She looked crazy. On the verge of Sigmund Freud. Insane. She looked crazy. But nothing materialized. But I'm just telling y'all, like, man, them 2000, man, please. Netflix. I remember Netflix chill was a thing. And then people, we don't do no Netflix and chill. We too good for cheesecake. Man, please. And that's how I knew. That's how I kind of knew I might have had a little bit of the flim flam. Because my dad had a mouthpiece. My dad didn't have no problem. I could tell my dad didn't have no problem with no women. He had no problem. Like I said, he was 50. My mom was 30 and stuff like that. Like he was with the flim flam. He must have told her something. He must have told her something, and then she just kind of believed it. But by that time, it was too late. And I'm like, damn, Pops, like you down bad. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, I was supposed to be talking about the food stamps. So I think I'm gonna do another one. I think I'm just gonna walk y'all through that. But the whole point, what I was supposed to be doing was matter of fact, I'm gonna end this one, and I'm gonna make a Pearson part 5. We gonna make this a damn series. I'm going reload it. Hold on.